Hi guys, it's Colin Allen from Medieval Swordplay Canada and also from the YouTube page A Circle of Branches. So I'm out here today in the Springwater Woods, and I'm going to be having a chat with Hannah and Marco, and they're going to be telling us a bit about themselves. Sitting out here in nature, they're going to be in their hammock and in their little portable chair and having a chat in the woods here about a little bit about themselves, give members of Medieval Swordplay Canada a chance to get to know them a bit better, and also any people on our page here, A Circle of Branches, to get to know Hannah and Marco better and spend a little bit of time chatting out here in the woods. Have a great day, guys.
Hello, I'm Hannah and I am a writer, an author.
Hey, I'm Marco. I'm Hannah's husband, and well, I do all kinds of things for work. I sell machinery. Very exciting. We love the outdoors as well. We love sports, including swordplay. I am born in Germany, and we lived in Germany for a while. Hannah is a true Canadian. I'm slowly becoming one.
Slowly.
So hey guys, it's Colin off camera here because you've seen enough of me on the videos and photos, and we're out in the woods here. As I'd mentioned, we're having a chat with Hannah and Marco. So totally different backdrop. We have a hammock. We're in the woods. It's drizzling a little bit. There was some snow flurries, about an hour ago? Way to go, Canada, yay. So we're just going to chat and find out, take this time to get to know Marco and Hannah a little bit different, and or a little bit more in depth. And I just have a few questions for them, some obvious, some maybe not so obvious, and some rapid fire questions. So first of all, I have to ask the obvious. How did you guys find out about Medieval Swordplay Canada?
I found out about it when I was, I guess, in my early teens, and I don't know, I saw people sparring at the mall.
Oh, wow.
At some point, I think I was about 12 or 13, and I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, and I said I wanted to do that one day, and I never had the guts to get involved, and I was also way too young. And then when we were just talking about moving back from Germany,
Yeah.
I was trying to convince Marco to be excited about moving to Canada, and I was like, there's people in our city who like play with swords, like, you know, like you could actually learn how to fence, and it was one of the reasons I was able to convince him to come over.
So quick legal disclaimer, back in those days we were a very different group. We were having a blast, but that makes me feel really old, Hannah. Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
That's awesome. We always really enjoy hearing, because sometimes it's not the obvious thing of how people found out about us. So that's awesome. And how about you, Marco? You heard through Hannah?
I heard through Hannah. I've always had an interest in martial arts as well as history. So that was a perfect fit for me, and we were thinking, okay, Canada's, distances are long, probably have to drive an hour to a place like this, and we found out it's very close. So we're very fortunate to have a club like this nearby.
Yeah.
So I remember when Hannah and Marco came by the club, and before I get to the next part, what did you guys think of the building when you first saw it, being an old decommissioned church?
Oh, absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of it's a great way to give a new purpose to that church building. Yeah.
And it's got a lot of character.
It's got a lot of character, and it fits with the historical setting. Of the Ema Swordplay.
Awesome. We've gone through days where we wanted the club to be bigger, the space to be bigger, and honestly, in hindsight, as I was talking with Steve and Keen, we're a boutique club, and it works better. It's more intimate. The space is better with a smaller group. So, trying to remember when you first came out. I remember Marco came in. I heard his accent right away. He reminded me of the gentleman from Scalagrim, who has a big YouTube channel. He's a Canadian boy. And despite the fact that Marco had the German accent and we did Italian longsword, we were quite happy to have them. And you've been with us how long now?
Over a year.
You started in April.
We moved over New Year's, like between 2018, 2019. And I think as soon as the first snow was gone.
Yeah, I think it actually might have been March.
March, oh, we were lucky that year.
Yeah.
The roads were clear. I checked out the club.
Yeah.
So just we haven't bumped into each other briefly a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago. But refresh my memory. What kind of gear do you guys have in the way of sparring equipment now? Because people have been buying gear, and they've had deliveries during this whole virus time period, and I'm not up to speed on everything that everybody has. So Marco, where are you on your sparring gear?
I have a longsword, Federschwert. It's actually a Federschwert.
Hey, it's a fetish for it, eh?
I recently got, through friends of mine, a one-handed sword as well. I do have a head protection, and we are still expecting the body protection to come in.
Yeah, our jackets are on the way.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So you ordered them. You just
Yeah,
waiting.
no, they've really been delayed because of everything.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. And same with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah,
Helmet,
same.
or mask,
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah, and
Um,
throat protection as well. And yeah, the back of the head protection is included in the helmet, right?
Yeah.
In your case as well, yeah. So-
Awesome. So, Hannah, I'm going to get into just briefly, not the typical what do you do for a living, but Hannah does something interesting that I find interesting. And we follow each other on Instagram, and your Instagram page is?
At HM Long Books.
And your other one? Do you have another one?
I do, but it's like the private account.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay. I have two, and they're different. They're not private. So, it's awesome watching what you do and your story updates per day. So, why don't you let everybody know what you do?
Well, I am an author, so I write actually fantasy books. I have a contract with Titan UK for 2 Viking-inspired fantasy books, one of which is complete and I'm in the editing process. It will be released January 2021.
Awesome.
And then the second book is to follow in January 2022. And then in North America, I will be distributed through Random House.
Oh,
So.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Big book company.
Yeah.
Anyone
it's
who reads
pretty
books should know who
exciting.
Random House is.
Yeah.
So, is it true when you said that when it comes out, and the first book is Hall of Smoke,
Called Hall of Smoke, yeah.
when it comes out that you're going to do a signed copy to me and it's going to read to the best fencer ever, signed
Yeah.
Hannah?
Please don't read my combat scenes.
So that brings a point without getting back into the writing side and the topic that you picked. Have any of the combat scenes in your book been influenced by any of your swordplay?
Yeah, I definitely think they did. Like, I didn't go terribly technical in the book. My goal was mainly to be, I don't know, more reasonable and sensible with my combat scenes. But working with the longsword, which is, what we're working with right now, gave me certainly a better sense of movement and how things, the choreography of things and what would work and what wouldn't. But again, I wasn't too technical because it's still a fantasy book, and I still had to work with my editors, like explaining, like, no, this is realistic, like, or I'd like to leave this in and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's definitely had an influence, and it's been fantastic.
So I know that Hannah reads a lot still. Looks like
Yeah.
you read a lot. I go in spurts where I read tons and then I take a break. Not planned that way, but I have 2 daughters that take after me, and they have bookcases and bookcases of books. Marco, what kind of genre of books do you like? You better say Fantasy Viking #1. We get that.
This is a point of contention.
Well,
That's why I'm going there.
I do like books of that genre, yes. I have not been reading a lot of books in my life. I have, definitely when I had more time earlier in life, I read adventure books of, that's actually interesting. It's a German author of the 19th century. It's very famous in Germany alone, writing about the Wild West, but he has never been there. So he has pretended to be a man of the West, a cowboy. The guy's called Karl May, and the book series is Winnetou. Winnetou is the name of a Native American, and he's a good friend, and he's called Old Shatterhand. So yeah, it's adventure, and it's really interesting. The guy has never been to North America, and got really famous until they found out, and then he got imprisoned.
Like he was impersonating, like.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
See, he pretended to be the main character, and that was late 19th century, like 1880 or what.
Oh, interesting.
And then they got filmed in the 50s and 60s in Germany, and only within Germany really, got famous. But yeah, ever since then I have not really been reading a lot, but
He has to listen to me talk about my books.
yeah,
enough,
that's
but-
true.
So if you had a favorite author, who would it be?
Karl May.
There you go.
There you go. Not
Probably.
me.
Yeah. Oh,
I just got that.
It's okay, honey. It was
Well,
a trap.
But this author, for example, has stirred up or increased my interest in nature and outdoors, for example. Yeah.
We will make sure that Marco gets back to his vehicle in one piece with Hannah. No, kidding. No, that's interesting. So Hannah, I have to ask you, who would your favorite author be?
Ooh.
Top two, if you're and people who read books that get it. It's hard. That's like movies.
I'd probably say Garth Nix, and that's largely just like I don't know if you're familiar with Garth Nix, but he's a YA fantasy author. He does do some adult work as well. But I started reading his books quite young, and they were a huge factor in I don't know, like the development of my creativity, I guess, and the angles that I went.
So for all the sword fans, especially a good friend of mine that we don't know each other well, but we clicked really well down in Ohio. I won't say his name. Who is a huge fan of an author that I'm a huge fan of. Do you know who Robert E. Howard is?
No.
Do you know who Conan is?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Conan.
So Wild West makes me think of Robert E. Howard and Conan. It's fascinating, his story, the author's story. And
We actually recently watched Conan the Barbarian. Yeah.
Let's not talk
the
about
books
that.
compared to the movie are quite something different.
Okay.
As most books, they're much better
Yeah.
than the movie.
I-
So,
Yeah.
Hannah, if you were to do something else, what would you do?
I would love to be like a museum curator. And I'll have that in my back pocket before the whole writing thing took off. So I'd love to work in a museum.
And Marco, you're an engineer.
Yes.
If you were to do something very different, what would it be? Something on the other end of the bookcase.
I actually have, before I wanted to become an engineer, I wanted to become a game developer for video games.
Okay.
And I have, I'm still working on a game at the moment. I actually finished something playable already as a hobby project. So yeah, that would certainly be something. And yeah, interestingly, the first time I got into martial arts was to understand the human mechanics better for drawing.
Okay.
Because before I was into sports, I was a little nerdy guy who really liked drawing a lot and playing video games. So I always had
Really
trouble
nerdy.
drawing anatomy
Okay.
until I, realized that I actually live in a human body.
How we move, 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm.
So, just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. I'll ask one question at a time. You guys take turns firing back. Just a quick, what comes to mind sort of thing. So I asked you your favorite author already. We have an audience behind us
Loud
here.
over there.
Steady.
But
So,
she is.
favorite movie?
Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Wow. Lord of the Rings, that's surprising for a swordplay guy. Insert sarcasm here. No, that's awesome. Everybody loves Lord of the Rings. So, Master Commander, Russell Crowe,
Yep.
Tale of Lesser
Lesser of two
Weevils?
weevils.
It's funny what you remember.
Yeah.
Let's see. Your favorite. So forget about author, because author and favorite book can be two very different things. Favorite book. Could be something even as a child, something that had a real impact on you.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer.
She read too many.
I really don't know.
We'll get to that in a minute.
I
about
like
the whole Viking
the
thing.
White Rider. Yeah.
Bernard Cornwell?
Yeah, The Last Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good choice. Favorite scary movie, just to be specific.
Scary.
I don't watch scary movies.
Doesn't have to be a good scary movie. It's just your favorite scary movie.
I've
Not
never.
fans?
The scariest movie I ever watched was The Village, and I was terrified, and it wasn't actually a proper scary movie. So, you watched any?
I don't find movies scary.
I'm a huge horror fan, so I'm just trying to
Okay.
influence some of my influence here.
Okay.
Traveling the world. If you could go to one place that you have not been to,
Where
any
me not
place in
been.
the world, no condition of, no, it doesn't have to be a realism of there's no
Ah.
house there, I can't get there. Anywhere you could go and visit, where would it be?
I think I'd like to go to New Zealand. Quite stereotypical, but look at where the Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
film scenery was. Yeah.
I've been fascinated with the Faroe Islands recently, so I'd love to go there.
I second that vote.
Yeah,
Faroe Islands are
they're
fascinating.
just incredible. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a gentleman on Instagram. If you're not following him, all he does is photograph the outer islands
Okay.
and Faroe. So,
All right,
keep-
I'd like
keep
to
that
find
link.
him.
So, back to training. Do you have any other? Have you trained in any other martial arts style in your life in the past?
Yeah, I did a couple of years. I think 7 or 8 years in total of jiu-jitsu. Not very regularly during that time, but for some time. That's how I started with martial arts. Really, yeah.
So, if I said to you, grab the meaty part of my hand, you know what I meant?
Yeah, I'd say.
Grab
yeah.
my gi? No, not there. No, the other. No, not that hand. The other side. Sorry, it's a jujitsu joke. Bad jujitsu joke. So 7 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Very cool.
Yeah, something like that.
And Hannah, any martial arts background?
No,
Well, now you do.
I'm a couch potato. I read books.
So HEMA, for anyone watching this,
Now I do. Yes.
HEMA is historical European martial arts, and the clue in that phrase was the MA part, the martial arts part. And in the last while, as you guys have seen with our trying to tweak format of class, we're trying to push more into that fun but regimented, taking it seriously but still having fun and replicating. There's a lot of things we do in class that people wouldn't realize are actually based on 1800s protocol on the fencing floor, that little things that we do. So what would you like to tell people, one thing about you that you would like people to know that they may not ever guess about you? So it could be
Swordplay
quirky
related or-
hobby, could be
Oh, okay.
just something interesting about your past.
I think when people listen to me talking, they'll have no idea that I'm not from Canada.
So you saying you got an accent there, boy? Sorry, that's my bad East Coast. And
I
Hannah?
was just trying to.
Just something
yeah.
you
your
could say
time.
that this might surprise people that I like whatever I do, whatever.
I was homeschooled. That's
Cool.
I'm a little socially awkward, so maybe people wouldn't be too surprised. But, yeah,
I
So
guess.
gave me lots of time to read.
I
so
guess.
be nerdy. So
Yeah. In my case, people would, knowing what I do for a living, right, engineering and all that, they might not know that. Yeah. Originally, I saw myself more as an artist and wanted to go into arts.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
very artistic. So
So I see a lot of pictures of you guys hiking, walking out in the woods, at the edge of the woods in the fields.
yeah.
That I think is awesome because I think, as anyone who knows me well or even sort of well, I'm very comfortable in the woods. I love the woods. Wish I had more time. So, is it something you're drawn to? Is it something you need to recharge? Is it both? Is it what's your feelings about nature and the woods and getting outside?
I think it's like an absolute just necessary part of life.
Yeah.
Like I can't calm down and relax when I'm like when we lived in Germany. We lived in a very urbanized area, and I was just incredibly unhappy because I need to go outside and be in the forest and just to calm down and become a sane person again.
It's almost like we were made to do this one time, way in the
Yeah.
past, right?
Yeah.
Almost. So I have to go back to the writing. And
Okay.
we had a running gag joke in our group years ago when we did reenactment, which we're not actively doing reenactment anymore. And I came up with this fun little hashtag Team Night, hashtag Team Viking. And the group split into Team Night and Team
I saw
Viking.
this post this morning.
And we had T-shirts that had a knight on one. It said Team Knight on the back, and we had one that had a Viking on the front, Norseman on the front, and it said Team Viking. So I went from Team Knight, as you know by the suit of armor downstairs, to happily to Team Viking. And we actually went through a summer of fighting a lot lighter armored, and people loved it. And we got the audience going, and people were cheering on. And hands down, and I can say this because it's my camera, the crowds enormously cheered louder for the Team Viking guys. The knights were. So, your book that you're writing, why Viking?
So, funny answer there. It never intended to be Viking inspired. I started writing with, like, and it's a fantasy book, so it's disconnected from our world. But the setting that I wanted was Romans on the Germanic frontier. So, like, the first scene in Gladiator, he's fighting in the forest, and I wanted that. And I started writing, and it naturally became a bit more Viking as I started, fleshing things out. And then when it came time, I was trying to sell the book. I was trying to find things to compare it to, and I was like, okay, the TV show Vikings. And then all of a sudden I started getting so much interest in the book because Vikings are such a thing and people love it so much. And so after that, it began to turn far more strongly in the Viking direction. So I didn't intentionally set out for it to be a Viking world, but it became, yeah.
I can see how, back to nature, what we know of the Vikings, there's a lot we don't know. Sorry, and anyone listening, I know it's the Norsemen. They went a Viking.
Yes.
But it ties into the whole, you've got the elements of nature, you've got craftsmanship, bushcraft, the original bushcrafters that walked around with these knives, well, it's just for camping that were this big. And so I can see how it could open up a whole door to a whole other natural world. So again, I'm going to ask a few more questions, but your book comes out January 2020.
January 2021.
Sorry, 2020.
Yeah, we don't have an
Freudian,
official...
I wish it was out already. I meant next January 2020.
It would be
what
nice
month
if
is
it was out.
What day is it?
Yeah.
Do you have your cover done?
Yes, but it's still a secret.
Can't show it.
Although I have it on my phone, I can show you.
So we promise everybody, when it comes out, we'll splash it on our page and share it with everybody right away.
Yeah.
So back to the HEMA training, and we predominantly do longsword training. There's some other things that we've done in the past, but longswords are our sweet spot. If there was one thing in what you can do and in your training, Marco, that would get you to do something that you really want to do, other than hitting someone more than you can hit them now, is there something in particular you'd like to work on? One factor of your martial art that you'd like to get better at? Whether it's the training that makes you better or it's the end result?
I got really excited about the German longsword, I must say, simply because it's just the fact that you would picture that your actual ancestors back in the day might have done it. That's just something.
Your last name means warrior.
Yeah, my last name means fighter.
Our last name, sorry.
Yeah. Vigant means is old German for fighter.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really interesting to think about. So yeah, and then the names are all from very old German. That's often not practiced anymore. And all these stances are also very interesting, especially all the master cuts. That's where I'm really curious about going forward to work on them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a whole, won't get into it, but there's a whole belief of how everything cross-pollinated. So the Germans influenced the Italians influenced the Germans. And back then, of course, it wasn't. They didn't walk around going, I'm Italian.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. But there's a thread of belief that the Irish monks, who kind of went everywhere and popped up churches everywhere, that they were trained in staff combat. And there's a whole piece about interacting with the Germans and exchanging how they did different things with the sticks, translating to longswords. So it's interesting how it all kind of, in theory, ties together. Obviously, there's pockets that are very distinct. So on the same thread in your training, Hannah, what's, we want to see you do more sparring. What would you like to? What's the one thing you'd like to do more of or learn how to do?
I don't know if there's really anything specific, but I just want to get. Oh, I would love to get into working with like shield and one-handed sword. That would be pretty cool.
The actual Viking combat, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That would be cool. But like overall, I just really would love to have just a better sense of, like not only longsword but all different types of like historical European martial arts, and better sense of things.
Any hesitation? I think I know Marco's answer. Any hesitation on full-on sparring?
Not on my side.
That's what I thought. I win.
I am not a generally like aggressive person, so I really have trouble in sparring.
So everybody watching this, mark the date, mark the time, and then we'll check back 6 months later and see what Hannah's doing to people. 'cause-
Hannah's just whooping my ass all the time.
That would be nice. That's some good incentive.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to everybody who we've been missing? You guys haven't seen anybody in what
Yeah.
day is it? How long?
Oh,
2
gosh.
months?
Yeah, 2 months or so.
Yeah, it's been great training with everyone.
Yeah, we
absolutely.
miss you guys, and we're looking forward
Yeah.
to everything getting started back up again, and
Yeah.
we're looking forward to hitting you with swords. So.
So we have a big announcement coming mid-June. Hannah and Marco have been privy to that announcement, and much like I'm going to look at Hannah's book cover, we'll use that as extortion so we don't spill the beans.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very much in the loop, and I look forward to sharing that information with you guys when June comes. And I want to thank you very much for your time hiking out
Thank
here.
you. Yeah.
And we'll get this posted up the next day or two.
All right.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
guys.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
See you soon.